the word depression brings up many, many things. You can talk about the black dog, but it affects too many people in New Zealand and too many people around the world. But you can overcome it with help, and you can follow your dreams. And that's where the story of Brian Cooper, now a Senior Champions Tour golfer, comes to play, because he overcame depression, but he was very public about it. And we're going to ask him why, what happened, and how good does it feel to be dealing with the black dog and doing what he loves. He joins us right now. Hello, Brian. Thanks for joining us on SENZ.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
No, you are more than welcome, my friend. I was reading the story here, and it is one of many stories that happen around the world. But for some reason, seeing a 55-year-old, which is a similar age to me, dealing with this and then finally achieving their dreams, struck a chord. So tell us the story. First of all, why golf?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I grew up playing every sport, mainly, hockey, baseball, and basketball. But, in the summers, golf was a way to spend, a little bit more time with with my dad and older brother. So, I gravitated towards playing, never took it serious. And then once in college, once out of college, actually, it just, I had a really good friend that was a golf professional, and started playing some pro-ams with him, and, started beating some of the local pros, and he was just like, hey, you should get into the business. And, I was fortunate enough that, I was unfortunate but fortunate enough, in Pittsburgh at the time, there weren't many minority golf professionals, so, it was going to be a tough racket to break. But I was fortunate in the fact that I was coaching high school hockey, and one of the kids I was coaching, his stepdad's brother happened to be an investor in a course that had just opened, like 2 years earlier. And through some talking and getting to know him, I ended up getting a job as a golf professional at his club. And from there on, I just, I decided that this is what I wanted to do. I stayed in Pittsburgh for a while because that's where I'm from, and worked. And then decided to move to Arizona. And when I moved to Arizona, I enjoyed less of working and folding shirts, and started to enjoy playing more. And that's how I gravitated towards it. But it was kind of a weird road to get there, but kind of fortunate enough to get there.
So at what age did you decide to try and become a professional?
Oh. God, I think I passed my PAT when I was 20. I think I started in the business trying when I was 94, so it would have been 26.
Yeah.
I think it was 26 when I first took my PAT, and I passed it on the first try, which was great.
You'll have to excuse me. Can I interrupt? Can I interrupt? What is the PAT? You'll have to help me out there.
Oh. So when you become a golf professional working at a club per se, to get into the PGA program,
right,
you have to pass a PAT, which is called a player ability test. So, you have to go out, they set up a course, there's a target score, you have to play 36 holes, and you have to get your target score. And you can't enter, at least back then. Now it's different. But back then, you couldn't even enter the program, sign up for it until you passed your PAT. Now I think you can enter the program, and the PAT is just something you can pass in due time. But back when I did it, if you didn't pass your PAT, you weren't even allowed to sniff getting in the program. But I passed on the first try, and it's weird because when there was two of us that passed, two guys. And that guy is still one of my best buddies to this day.
Nice.
He runs the show at a Golf Galaxy in Pittsburgh. But he's still one of my best buddies to this day. And it's weird that we still, not weird, it's great, but it's cool that we still have that friendship, almost 30 years.
So let's confirm.
Removed.
Let's confirm. Did not make the PGA Tour, correct?
Did not. Never got through second stage. Got through first stage, a few times, but never could crack that second stage bubble. Never could.
So the dream was then to become a seniors tour professional. How many cracks have you taken before success?
Well, yeah, I guess the dream was there. I mean, there was a point where I wanted to quit. I mean, there was a point where, I reached I was like probably in my mid 40s, and it's like a tough spot to be in your mid 40s. You're probably too old to worry about trying to make it to the PGA Tour or Korn Ferry or Buy.com, whatever it was at that point. But then, you have to wait 5 years. So you got to find something to do for 5 years before you can take a run at the senior tour. And I decided at that point that I would. I'd wait, figure out, play. I went to Latin America, played with the young guys for a little while. And then went to Q School. For Q School for Champions, I made it to finals every year. I got through first stage every time. At finals, my first 2 go-rounds, I missed top 30, which is a key number because that gets you conditional status and straight into the Monday qualifiers. I missed conditional status my first 2 go-rounds at finals by a shot, which was, it was not, it was brutal to deal with because I felt like I was better than that, and I felt like I, could have made it all the way through. And then finally, my 3rd year, I cracked through and got conditional status, finishing like 17th, I think. And, and I had a pretty decent year that year. I think I Monday qualified 4 times, got into 2 majors. And then the next year I went back to Q School again, finished like 15th or something. Then had a decent year. I think I Mondayed into 3 or 4 events, 1 major. And then I think that was the year, then coming into the next year, that was the year I had shoulder surgery, which was a year ago now, and that's when all hell broke loose.
Yeah, and that's what I'd like to touch on now. Yeah, you have your shoulder surgery. At what stage do you suddenly realize you were falling into depression?
I had the shoulder surgery in mid-January, and I think probably, about 2 months into it, probably around mid-March, I felt like, I didn't know how this was going to turn out. I really didn't know how recovery was going to go. It was quite, I had a lot wrong in that shoulder, more than we thought. So, a 4-month turnaround turned into what we were projecting now to be 6. And so I think probably right in there, it started to feel like, this might be it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to recover from this. And, I'm pretty strong-willed, and I push myself pretty hard. I still do things now at 55 that I probably did when I was in my 20s, and I probably shouldn't be doing.
Oh, no. Never apologize. Never apologize for having the brain of a 21-year-old and having fun.
So, and then, unfortunately, I am extremely, I don't know what the right word is, but, my son is everything to me. And then, I started dealing with some hateful, jealous parents in his youth sports. And he's an elite hockey player at his age at 9. And, that really affected me because that was one thing that I wasn't in control of. There was nothing I could do. All I had to do was sit back and deal with it. And it was something that was, quite difficult for me to do. And I think that really hurt me. And that pushed me a little lower. And I think that was really the tipping point where it really got bad because, I was trying to figure out, what the hell? I'm his dad. Why can't I fix this? What is wrong? Is it me? Is there something wrong with me? What's the problem? And it was tough, and that was really tough to deal with, especially when you're dealing with, parents who are just pump your brakes, stay in your lane and just chill out,
So when was the moment you said I need help? Did you reach out, or did a friend reach out?
Yeah, no, not for a while. I mean, I acknowledged it in probably April that there was a problem, and there were some really, really dark days. But I kind of acknowledged it to myself. I didn't say anything to anybody. I just kind of buried myself into what he was doing. I buried myself into trying to get through rehab, trying to decide if I wanted to still play this game, a lot of that. And it really wasn't until probably like August, maybe early. I forget the day I called my brother-in-law, and I opened up to him, and I told him, and surprisingly, he says, I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know how to bring it up to you and ask you. And we talked, and I told him that, I was quite scared and embarrassed to share that with, his sister, my wife. But that I was not in a good place. I was really in a very dark place. I thought things would be better off without me than they were with me. And then, when I think that, I'd see a picture of my son or my wife, and I'd be like, nope, you can't do that. You got to figure out a way. You got to figure out a way. No matter how much you're hurting, you got to figure out a way. And then finally, when I told him, he says, you got to tell, my wife's name is Shelly. He said, you got to tell Shelly. And then a couple days later, I told her. And then that was when, I was lucky. The people I did my rehab with, they work with athletes and they work with, therapists. And I reached out to my PT guy and I said, hey, I need help, dude. I said, do you know of anybody that works with athletes that can help? And he gave me a woman's name, and I've been with her ever since. Actually just saw her yesterday, and she's been an absolute godsend to me.
Wow. I mean, just briefly, did you not confide in your wife at all? It was that bad?
No, I did not confide. She was the second person I told.
Wow.
I told her brother first. And then he's like, you got to tell her. And I'm like, I just don't know how, because, my wife looks at me as this strong character.
A failing of many men, Brian. A failing of many men, pride.
Oh, well, yeah. And I even said that, and when I was open about it, when I acknowledged it out and open, I said, it's a stigma that men have that they can't admit it. And that's wrong. And I was wrong. And, it took me admitting it to know that I was wrong. And it's ironic you say that, because, I've had so many people on social media, after getting my status and even prior to getting my status, because I was open about it. I shared it on every social platform I use, and I wasn't embarrassed about it, and I had so many people reach out to me and thank me and tell me that because of what I did, they feel like they can now admit it and try to get help. And, I remember one conversation in particular. It was a buddy of mine. His name is Barry Concert. He's a golfer. We were at first stage, and he came up to me on the green, and he said, and he pulled me aside and started talking to me about it. And he said, hey, I've dealt with it too. He says, but that took a lot of courage on your part to be able to acknowledge that, how you did it, and so openly. And he says, I can tell you, it helped me just reading it. It made me feel good. So, anybody that's listened, I've said, if I can help, if this helps one person, and I've found out it's helped a lot more. If it helps one person, then I'm overjoyed. Honestly, I'm overjoyed.
It is such a beautiful thing to do as well, just to be honest with everybody. And if men don't speak up, then they're only fooling themselves. Let's fast forward. The moment you get your card, you're going to play Champions Tour this season. How good was that feeling?
Am I allowed to swear on your radio show?
Well, no, you can't. You can't drop the F-bomb or the C-bomb. So maybe we can.
It was. I still, it's funny. Every time I look at the video when it's all said and done, I still get emotional. It is. anybody that knows the Champions Tour knows it's the hardest tour in the world to get on. I mean, to be one of those guys, I've always felt that I was one of those guys, but to be now one of those guys, it is a very humbling and experience. And I mean, it's pretty cool. And it's something, I'm proud that one day I can, my son can, when he's old enough, try to understand fully what happened. It'll be pretty cool. But he kind of knows, he gets it. But it's awesome, dude. I mean, there's nothing else I can say. It's awesome.
Well, you know what else is awesome? You get to play against a guy called Stephen McIvor, who's a Kiwi.
Oh yeah,
and he's pretty. Yeah. He's had a pretty handy season last season, didn't he?
He has. He has. I mean, it's ironic. Alc's first event that he Mondayed for, I Mondayed for. We both Mondayed up in Seattle, and that's where everything started for him. And Alker's right here in the Valley with me too. I haven't picked up a club except one time since finals. Except last week I went to Callaway. But other than that, so I'm sure I'm going to see Alc here pretty soon when I start going back up to TPC to practice. So I'm sure he and I will have a little conversation. So it'll be fun to catch up with him.
Well, Brian, we are incredibly happy that you beat the Black Dog, but you continue to deal with it. Everybody knows what's going on, and the way you are helping people just by sharing your story. All we can say is we wish you the best of luck on the Champions Tour, and go get him. But try not to beat up on Alc too much.
Well, I mean, he's the one everybody has their eye on. I can't make any promises. I don't want to go out there and make friends, but I definitely want to go out there and play well. And if it comes down to him and I in the end, I mean, that would be a pretty cool story.
Well, you deserve everything you get, my friend. Thanks for sharing your story and spending some time with us here on SENZ.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and God bless.